Hello everyone, welcome back to Alternative Apex, here in Bahrain, for round 1 of the 2022 Formula 1 season. We are here at the Sakir circuit for the first race of the season, and what will hopefully be a very exciting start to what will hopefully be a very exciting season. The 15-turn Sakir racetrack, always been a great racetrack to watch Formula 1 cars race around here, all 5.4 kilometres of it, 3.3 miles. A bit of elevation change around this race circuit, but definitely not the most elevation change we'll see of the season. So let's take a look at the starting grid for the first race of the year. Well, it is a Ferrari front row lockout as Charles Leclerc takes pole position ahead of Carlos Sainz. About a tenth separating the two Ferrari drivers. Then as we look further down the grid, we have Max Verstappen, then George Russell in his first race to Mercedes, with Perez and Tsunoda putting in a great qualifying session there for AlphaTauri. Then it is Lando Norris from McLaren with Valtteri Bottas in the top 10 for Alfa Romeo, with Schumacher and Pascal Wehrlein in the first race for Porsche getting in the top 10, with Hamilton and Albon just outside. Then we have Vettel, Ocon, Gasly and Stroll as we get to the mid-range of those outside the top 10, with Joe and Latifi following them up, with the second of the Porsches having a much tougher qualifying in 19th place with Alonso in 20th, Ricciardo in 21st, and Kevin Magnussen brings up the back of the grid after a not especially fun qualifying for him, and he will start 22nd. So we're down here on the grid, anticipating a hopefully dramatic start to the season. Often there is a lot of drama in the first race of the year, of course. These cars, with only pre-season testing to go off of, so they don't know everything about their race cars, especially given that we have new regulations this year, so anything could happen here as the drivers now take to the formation lap. We have Leclerc and Sainz there, as we can see it, leading the way on the formation lap. The two Ferrari drivers looking to try and start the season with a strong result, but they know it's not going to be easy. Red Bull showed a lot of pace in pre-season testing and weren't that far off in qualifying, with Perez having some struggles. Looking at the new team on the grid, Porsche, they are starting in a mixed couple of positions, 10th and 19th. Both drivers, I'm sure, will be looking to try and work their way up the order. Wehrlein, he has openly said that he pushed a bit more in qualifying in terms of the setup. He maybe took some more risks there, and it's paid off for qualifying. Hülkenberg did say he was preparing more for the race, so it could be interesting to see how those two do in the race. But the cars now are lining up on the grid for today's race, so I hope you're all very excited and anticipating this Grand Prix. But now we see the final couple of cars lining up on the grid, and they are now ready for the race start. We are racing in Bahrain. It's a good start there from Charles Leclerc as he'll look to try and hold the lead as they make their way down towards turn 1, but Carlos Sainz with a much better start. He's going to take the lead as they dive onto the brakes into turn 1. Carlos Sainz with a very good start there, down the inside of his teammate, but can he hold it as they go side by side through turn 2? You can see those guys struggling for grip on these cold tyres to start the race. Charles Leclerc loses the lead of the start as George Russell gets up into third off the start there, so it's another good start for the Mercedes driver as he is now in a podium position ahead of Max Verstappen. Tsunoda's had a good start as well as he gets up into 5th, as Perez is dropping all the way down to 7th here as he's battling Bottas, and Bottas is through. So Perez not having the start he needed in that Red Bull after a relatively poor qualifying session, starting behind George Russell. He's had an even worse race start, now dropping behind Tsunoda and Valtteri Bottas, so that is not what Perez would have wanted. But if we look further down the order, Wehrlein has dropped out of the top 10. Hamilton has gained a place there from his starting position of 11th, but Russell leading the two Mercedes at the moment as Carlos Sainz leads the race ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc after a very impressive race start. At the end of lap 1 now we have side-by-side racing as they go into the final corner. Lewis Hamilton, Mick Schumacher, one of the older drivers in the field versus one of the younger drivers in the field. When we speak about Hamilton versus Schumacher, we usually aren't referring to Mick versus Lewis, usually referring to Michael versus Lewis, but in this scenario we do have Mick Schumacher racing Lewis Hamilton as they go into turn 1. Hamilton in theory with the better car in that Mercedes, his teammate is running third at the moment. Schumacher though putting up a very good fight as he gets a bit sideways coming up the hill there, he gets a lot sideways coming up the hill there, but does lose out on the position. He's got racing further up the road as Bottas, and Norris racing as Perez has got through on Bottas at some point, must have been into turn 1 there, as now Bottas racing the McLaren of Lando Norris, who is looking to try and put his Papaya McLaren one position further up in this race, but Tsunoda still running well in 5th for now at least, as Yuki Tsunoda is going to come under pressure from Sergio Perez as he goes to the outside of the final corner. Tsunoda looking to try and put in a good performance for the first race of the season, wants to try and impress the higher ups at Red Bull Racing to prove that he deserves a seat at the main team as he's now racing Sergio Perez I'm sure Red Bull won't be liking the look of this in the sense that it is holding up their driver here. Perez still behind Tsunoda as they go into turn 1, so a great bit of driving there from the young Japanese man to stay ahead of Sergio Perez. But Perez now is going to have another go down the inside of the final corner. Can he make this smooth stick? He's trying everything, but Tsunoda just gets such a better traction out of that final corner. Drives away from the Red Bull. Let's see now. Perez going down the straight. What can he do now as DRS is available to Perez down this straight? What can he do? As you see, he's getting close, but Tsunoda places his car on the right piece of the track, covers off the inside line. Perez is going to go to the outside. He's going to have the inside now for turn 2, but can he keep it there? It's a much tighter apex there on the inside line, whereas Tsunoda could carry the speed around the outside now, as we do see Verstappen and Russell side by side up the road as well. Tsunoda holds off Perez, and Verstappen gets up into 3rd place though. So whilst one Red Bull is struggling, getting stuck in traffic, Verstappen is getting up into the podium positions here, as Tsunoda has held on there to P5, Perez in P6, but is still trying his best. Again, we see these two battling. They're trying so hard to not lose too much time, but Perez has to get ahead. He knows that he's got the quicker car, and he just needs to get ahead of the young Japanese driver, but it may not be over still. Tsunoda is fighting back here as now he's battling with Valtteri Bottas, but into the braking zone. That's a massive dive bomb from Yuki Tsunoda. He goes down the inside of Perez, and surely he can't fight back again. Surely, no, he's going to go around the outside of turn 2. It's a brilliant move. Down the inside of turn 3 now as they make their way up towards turn 4, and Tsunoda is still in 5th place. He refuses to lose that position as Bottas now is trying to get through on Perez. Not quite going to be able to do it in the Alfa Romeo, but this is some brilliant driving from Yuki Tsunoda. He still runs in 5th place. Perez will be so frustrated here as he once again he's going to try the move into this final corner. He's going to have DRS to the straight. He was behind as they went over the DRS detection point there, so he will get the opening in the rear wing for this straight. They're going to be side by side as they make their way now onto the main straight to start lap 6 of 29. And Perez, surely he has it this time. He's ahead going into turn 1. Later on the brakes is Tsunoda. He's so brave on the brakes into turn 1. And Perez gets a little bit of a wobble coming out of turn 1. And that's going to allow Tsunoda to get side by side. But then again, Tsunoda has the wobble coming out of turn 2. And now it is ahead of Tsunoda finally, Perez. But Tsunoda's fighting back. No way. No way. There's no words can describe the driving we are witnessing here. Yuki Tsunoda back into 5th position, ahead of Sergio Perez. This is absolutely insane from the young Japanese driver. As now again, defending into the final corner, Perez is doing all he can to get past. Perez is pushing so hard against this AlphaTauri. They're costing each other so much time, but finally, he's got ahead and clear out of the final corner as Bottas could well spoil Tsunoda's day. Tsunoda is dropped down to 6th. He's going to fight back. He's nearly in the wall in the pit straight. There's so aggressive racing there, but Perez has defended the inside line. He's blocked off Tsunoda. He hasn't let Tsunoda get back ahead of him now, and now Perez is finally ahead of the AlphaTauri driver, and Valtteri Bottas has followed him through here. As Tsunoda, you can see how aggressive he is there, trying to get back past the Alfa Romeo, as that's going to allow Lando Norris to the outside of both of them. And Lando Norris now, could he go around the outside of 2 cars in one move? They're going to be side by side of the S section here. In theory, Bottas has got the better line, but if Norris can hold it around the outside, that would be very impressive. He's now got the inside. Now that's Norris up into 6th position, Bottas down to 7th, Tsunoda down to 9th. He's lost a position to Mick Schumacher as well now. It was going so well for Tsunoda, but it's all gone so badly wrong now. Down into 9th position, that is a shame. Now he's going to go deep into the final corner where he's been so strong all race. It just doesn't look like it's going his way now. Dropping down to 9th position as they're battling for P10 behind him, Hamilton and Ocon. These two are side by side going to turn 1. Hamilton going to go down the inside. Is he going to do what Tsunoda did on Perez? He is late on the brakes on that inside. You can brake so much later if you've got the confidence in your car, but he can't quite make the move stick as now coming up the hill. He should have DRS here, so let's see what he can do. He's going to go to the outside of turn 4. Lewis Hamilton versus Yuki Tsunoda. Again, one of the older drivers versus one of the younger drivers. We're really seeing a new generation of F1 stars now, and they really are stars as Tsunoda fights off Lewis Hamilton. Once again, Tsunoda, excellent defensive driving. Even though he hasn't necessarily got the quickest car on the field, he is really holding up some quick guys. As now they're going to be free wide into turn 1. Hamilton down the inside of Ocon, who's down the inside of Tsunoda. Free wide, surely this can't work. Tsunoda's surely going to get squeezed out. And up the hill they go. Hamilton around the outside of turn 2. Is he going to make that one work? It looks like he is. That is Lewis Hamilton up in to 9th position. Ocon into 10th. And Tsunoda is going to drop out the points paying positions there. Oh, but there's a retirement. Who's that? That's George Russell. George Russell, who was running in the top 5, I believe in 4th. He's now retired from the race. It's an engine failure at Mercedes. Oh, he was doing so well, but an engine failure has taken out George Russell. But the race will stay green here as Lewis Hamilton is going to try the move on Mick Schumacher around the outside of turn 1. down the inside of turn 2, side by side up the hill. They're going to be close again, these two racing once more. Schumacher doing a really great drive here. Now that's Ocon, I believe, attacking Hamilton again. It is. Down the inside will go the Frenchman. And Hamilton using all his experience to try and fend this one off, but he just can't quite do it again. The young driver comes out on top. And Ocon is up into 8th position as they now make the way on to lap 12. Ocon right up behind the Haas there of Mick Schumacher is into the pits, came Valtteri Bottas, so it looks like the pit window is now open. Ocon going to try the move on Mick Schumacher around the outside. Can he make this one work? It's going to be up the inside of turn 2, and that's a very nice move there. We've seen a lot of drivers struggle to hold that position on the inside of turn 2. They're getting a bit sideways, but on this occasion, Ocon has nailed that one and managed to get up in at 2 on the road, 6th position. But now that the pit window has opened, these positions may be a little mixed up. As you now look to Carlos Sainz on lap 13 of the race. He's going to be coming in this time, or is he? No, it isn't. It's Leclerc who's going to get the undercut on his teammate. That's some questionable strategy there at Ferrari. They're giving Leclerc the advantage by giving the undercut, or at least in theory, they're giving the advantage here. But with these new regulations, there was some questions about whether the overcut may actually be the favoured strategy. Is now a lap later, Carlos Sainz will come into the pits. With how hard it is to get tyre temperature in these new tyres, could it potentially mean that the overcut is the better way of doing it? Even if it is, the thing is, you'll have that overcut and you'll gain that track position. However, you then might lose it again when you're struggling on those colder tyres. So let's see, where's Carlos Sainz going to come out? He's going to exit the pit lane now. Where is his teammate Charles Leclerc? Going down the main straight into the braking zone of turn 1. Carlos Sainz out of the pits, but barely ahead of his teammate. Charles Leclerc is right there behind him, and on lovely warm tyres, Carlos Sainz going to be in trouble here. His tyres are not up to temperature, and his teammates are. Leclerc's going to go to the outside of turn 4. Can Charles Leclerc take the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix around the outside of turn 4? Lovely move there from Charles Leclerc. Uses the extra grip he has. Those tyres nice and warm whilst his teammate slides around. It's Leclerc who takes the lead of the Grand Prix here. Brilliant move, and some interesting strategy at Ferrari, but it's worked out for Leclerc, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that particular strategy. As we now look further back in the midfield, we've got Norris and Bottas battling away. Similar sort of situation here, where we have drivers on cold tyres, drivers on hot tyres, so they make their way out of the pits. Interestingly here, we got Hamilton in at 8th, we got Tsunoda in 9th, and then in 10th, Nico Hülkenberg. Where has he come from? He started 19th, he's up into 10th position in this race. On those cold tyres, can he fight them off as Norris is ahead of Bottas there? Bottas trying to try and fight back there. As then we've got Ocon, Hamilton, Tsunoda, and Hülkenberg again in the points on cold tyres. Let's see if he can hold on to this one, as we could well have battling as these guys are on a range of tyre temperatures, which is going to mix things up. As we've got battling further up, we've got Norris and Bottas side by side here, whilst Hamilton's got past Ocon. Lots of racing happening here, as the tyre strategy really has mixed things up. Hamilton up into 7th, Bottas back up into 5th, Tsunoda into the points again in 9th, and Hülkenberg. What a strategy the Porsche team have done in their first race to get Hülkenberg up into P10, but his teammate down in P16, so they've clearly tried two very different strategies here at the Porsche garage, and one has worked out very well, the other not so much. As we now see Wehrlein battling with Alonso. We said, Wehrlein, with that qualifying setup, could he struggle in the race? He has now dropped back to P17, so clearly Hülkenberg's setup for the race working out better than his teammates. Wehrlein now battling with Alonso, but there's so many competitive cars this year, it is truly outstanding, as now we see a battle going on between Mick Schumacher and Pierre Gasly here for P11, as Schumacher going a bit wide there. He's going to come out of turn 1, and he's got that problem. He's going slowly. He's off the road. It's Mick Schumacher retiring from the Grand Prix here on lap 18 of 29. He had a good chance at points here today, but that is a retirement for Mick Schumacher and is the second of the race. But again, we will stay green as we have side-by-side racing here between Alonso and Ricciardo, and that was a pretty large amount of contact as they go through turn 1. Some side pod to tyre contact, so they'll be lucky if they both got away without damage there. But Alonso racing Daniel Ricciardo, these two battling away. As I was saying before, so many competitive cars. I mean, look at Alonso and Ricciardo, both in cars that are clearly capable of points because the teammates are in the points paying positions, but they're down battling over P14. There's just so many competitive cars that it really just comes down to your strategy and your circumstances. Do you have a clean race? Do you avoid the traffic? Do you have the tyres up to temperature when you need them up to temperatures? Again, they're going to be side by side to turn 1. This time Alonso on the inside. Avoid contact this time, but they're going to go side by side, I imagine, up the hill once more. Alonso going to try it down the inside, or is Ricciardo going to cover that one off? No, Alonso to the inside as they go towards turn 4. Ricciardo, a bit of a squeeze there, really squeezing Alonso to the inside. Alonso going to try to make this one stick. It's hard to get traction on that inside line. Again, proved Ricciardo on that outside line. We saw his teammate make a move around the outside of this part of the track, and Ricciardo looks like he's going to be able to manage to do that, or maybe not. Alonso nearly kept it around the outside, but just quite couldn't do it. Oh, but he goes deep in the hairpin. A lock up there for Alonso. That's nearly allowed Wehrlein past him, but Wehrlein, I think he may have to check up a little bit there to avoid the back of the Alpine driver, but it's not going to slow Alonso down because on lap 23, he's going to try and make the move again, side by side to turn 1. Some great scrapping here in these midfield positions. They may not be over points, but you never know. Anything can happen in these races, so there was some drama ahead. These guys could well get some points from this race, but at the moment, battling away for P14 and Ricciardo is ahead, but for how long? Alonso clearly has got a lot of pace at the moment and he wants to use it, but not quite able to as they're still side by side into turn 1. So many times they've tried this one. Alonso just can't get past, and again, they're side by side. We know Alonso, a brilliant racer, but Ricciardo, he's not bad either as he continues to hold position there against the very experienced veteran, 2-time champion of Formula 1 versus Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. Can he hold it around the outside again, that racing line that he has on the outside of turn 4. Ricciardo just gets so much better grip on the corner exit, and that allows him to stay ahead. As they dive into the hairpin, and now that's Wehrlein getting involved in this battle. Doesn't look like he has quite got the race paces, though. These two bang wheels now. But Wehrlein doesn't look like he quite has the paces. He's now going to come under pressure from Guan Yu Zhou. Down the inside, in to turn 10. He's going to get pushed off the road by the Alfa Romeo driver there. Zhou, really aggressive. And that is now going to allow these two to stay side by side as they come off the corner. Zhou maybe had to lift off a little bit there. Maybe felt a bit bad for pushing him off the road. But Wehrlein doesn't look like he has the pace in this race, but the battling head has allowed him to stay in touch of the Alpine and McLaren drivers. Those two side by side so often, more often than not it feels like. It has allowed the pack behind to really reel in, because you see like a bit of a train behind them. Because you've got Ricciardo, Alonso, Wehrlein, Zhou, Stroll and Magnussen all in the group here. Now we see Hamilton battling away with Valtteri Bottas, former teammates, of course, last year won several Constructors' Championships together. But now Bottas kicked out of Mercedes, replaced by George Russell. And on this race in particular, I think Bottas would rather have that Alfa Romeo, given that Russell is out of the race with an engine problem. But now, that Alfa Romeo, it's a quick car, but that Mercedes just looks a little bit quicker here. Hamilton starting to put the pressure on the Alfa Romeo ahead of him. These two are going to start to scrap their way. We've seen some battles between these two in the past over Grand Prix wins. This is not over a Grand Prix win, it's over 5th place. But at the moment, it is Bottas who stays ahead as there's more contact in this battle for P14. It looks like they're battling for the win, how hard they're fighting here. Alonso behind the McLaren car, still behind the McLaren car. It just does not look like he's going to be able to make this move because Ricciardo is putting in some great defensive driving. As now we look back to Hamilton versus Bottas, these two battling again now on lap 26, not long left in this Grand Prix to go as Bottas makes a mistake on the exit of the final corner. He got a bit sideways, and Hamilton, I believe with the DRS on this straight, will get up into 5th place. As now, we return to the great battle we're having here. Ricciardo versus Alonso. Alonso to the inside, Ricciardo on the outside. Who's going to win on this occasion? They're side by side in the braking zone of turn 1. How's this one going to play out? Alonso trying his best outside of turn 2. We've seen some drivers make that one stick, and Alonso has now. He is up into 14th position. As now Ricciardo's going to come under pressure from Pascal Wehrlein, but Wehrlein doesn't look like he's quite able to fight on at this point in time. Alonso up into P14. Finally up into P14 as Ricciardo drops back to 15th. He defended so well, but in the end that had to come to an end because he did all he could. You couldn't have asked for him to do any more there. As there is a retirement, I believe, of Alex Albon, who has retired from this race, so that's dropped him down the order, which now promotes Alonso up into 13th place. As now see Wehrlein versus Ricciardo on lap 20 to 29. Not long left in this race now. Battling over P14 as big lock up from Ricciardo. He goes deep, and that is going to allow Wehrlein an easy overtake up into P14. Is now there side by side. Guan Yu Zhou versus Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo looks like maybe he just pushed a little bit too hard on those tyres, defending from Alonso, because now his defence is coming to an end. But he's still fighting. He's still doing all he can. But Zhou gets ahead there, with Magnussen getting ahead of Stroll behind. Ricciardo, he did all he could, but in the end that just wasn't going to work out, and his tyres really crying out. But up at the front, we haven't seen much of these guys all race long. The battling's all been in the mid-pack, but we did see Leclerc make that great move for the lead, and he has held that lead, and he's pulled away from his teammate. Charles Leclerc comes out of the final corner now, and in the first race of 2022, it is Charles Leclerc who takes the win in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz, he took the lead early on, but couldn't quite hold it off in the pit window there, dropping to second place as Verstappen will take third place. Not a bad race for Red Bull, they didn't quite look like they had the pace of the Ferrari drivers on this occasion, with Perez taking fourth, but way behind the top three there. He is going to have to come back with quite the fight next race in Saudi Arabia, because I think it's fair to say Red Bull won't be happy with Perez's performance today. 17 seconds behind his teammate, but of course, the struggles he had with Tsunoda early on, well documented, so That'll be an interesting debrief after the race there, as Lewis Hamilton, recovering from 11th on the grid, will take P5 here today. Would have been interesting to see how George Russell would have done in the other of the Mercedes cars, but I think it's fair to say Hamilton with a strong drive up into 5th position here, but 28 seconds behind the top 4. Very much Mercedes not there at the moment. Bottas will take P6 on his debut for Alfa Romeo, with Norris taking P7 for McLaren, with Ocon, Tsunoda and Nico Hülkenberg rounding out the points of Porsche, as Porsche will get points. Well, a singular point on their debut here in Formula 1. Nico Hülkenberg returns to F1, and he has managed to secure a solid result there for the Porsche team. And I'm sure they will be very happy with that, as is Ferrari very clearly, and so is Charles Leclerc, and rightly so. What a drive there from the Monegasque. Really stunning performance from him today. He lost the lead, of course, on lap 1, but he managed to fight back, and maybe the strategy helped him out a little bit, but still, you know, you have to deal with what you got, and, you know, he lost the lead at the start. You could argue, you know, that was a bit of bad luck as well. So Leclerc seems to have well balanced in this race, winning by 2.5 seconds, as we see him making his way to the podium now. A deserving victory for the Ferrari driver, and a deserving one too for Ferrari, as they did very much look like the class they feel today. But Verstappen there, holding his own in 3rd position. That was the best result he probably could have got today, and I'm sure he can't be too disappointed with that. Of course, he will have wanted to have beaten those 2 Ferraris ahead of him, but sometimes you just have to take what you have, and today, the best Verstappen could manage was P3, so it's still crucial points in the championship fight. Of course, the reigning champion, he'll be looking to try and defend that crown, but it won't be easy this season, because Ferrari clearly have a very, very fast car, as they celebrate their victory here in round 1 of 2022. So here are your results for the first race of the season. Charles Leclerc wins with fast lap, and Carlos Sainz makes it a Ferrari 1-2. Verstappen in 3rd, with Perez in 4th, makes it a Red Bull 3-4. Probably the best they could have hoped for on this day. With Hamilton in 5th, Bottas in 6th, their former teammates racing each other towards the end. With Norris taking P7 for McLaren. Didn't look like they quite had the optimal pace today, so probably the best they could have hoped for as well. Ocon in 8th there. The Alpine looked quite a quick car, but in the end, only 4 points for them. Tsunoda only takes 2 points home, which is still a pretty strong start to the season for him. However, running up in 5th in the early stages, looked like he had a lot of pace, at least early on, but maybe the AlphaTauri just didn't quite have the long run paces. Nico Hülkenberg with an absolutely brilliant drive there. P19 to P10, take a bow on his return to racing. He certainly hasn't lost any of his immense talent in his years of Formula 1. Pierre Gasly just misses out there, with Vettel in 12th, Alonso 13th after that great battle, and Verlaine will take P14. Of course, the Drivers' Championship here is just a continuation of those race results, but you can see there, Ferrari leading the way with 1st and 2nd in the Drivers' Championship, an 8-point lead for Charles Leclerc ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz. Over in the constructor standings, unsurprisingly, Ferrari lead the way by quite a margin over Red Bull, but it's only early stages, so anything can happen next time out. Mercedes sitting 3rd, just ahead of Alfa Romeo. McLaren are in 5th there, with Alpine 6th, AlphaTauri in 7th, Porsche Motorsport in 8th. With a point on their debut, I'm sure they'll be quite happy with that. 8 teams scored points in this first race season out of the possible 10, so quite a variation in those midfield cars and who scored points today. The only teams to get double points were Ferrari and Red Bull, so that just shows how mixed up the field is at the moment, because, I mean, so many teams are so close together in that midfield pack. With Aston Martin, Haas and Williams, the 3 teams yet to score points this season. I'm sure it won't be long until those guys score some points, though, because both the Aston Martin and the Haas looked really quick today. The Williams, not so much, but they certainly can improve, and if a bit of luck goes their way, then I see no reason why Williams can't get on the points ladder. But that is it for round 1 of 2022. I hope you all enjoyed it. It was quite the exciting race, I certainly think. Lots of battling throughout the field, lots of great defensive and aggressive drives. Hamilton charging up the order, Leclerc taking the lead. We had Alonso fighting with Ricciardo, and we had Tsunoda with that great defensive drive to begin with in this race. Shame that more points didn't come his way after that defensive performance, but in the end, that's how it is. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed it. And next time out, we go to Saudi Arabia, which should be a circuit that produces, if possible, even more racing, because the long straights there, the long DRS straights, allow for lots of side-by-side action, so make sure you don't miss out on that one. So please do subscribe to the channel so that you're there ready for when the next race gets uploaded. But that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching the first race of the season, and I hope you will join us next time. But until then, it's goodbye.